Well, that sure didn't go according to plan. Well, we all know Canelo Alvarez. He took on Bivol last night, and he got the short end of the stick. One of the things I've always said when it comes to different fighters is that if you want to go ahead and quote pick and choose, you can go ahead and you can do that. But regardless, even if you're trying to avoid certain styles that might not necessarily work for you, you're still going to eventually be wrong with who you pick, and you're going to put yourself into a space where regardless of who you're facing, you still got to make adjustments in order to win that fight. It doesn't necessarily have to be, okay, look, this is the style that bothers me, or this particular type of guys, these are the top guys, these aren't necessarily the top dudes, I'm going to face these guys, I'm going to beat them. No, not necessarily. There'll be a guy who will win all his big fights, but then he'll lose to there's nobody, or to somebody that you never heard of before, or somebody that's a mid-level fighter, and then somebody else will beat that guy, and you'll beat the dude that beat him, like with ease. You just never know, but you're going to get put into that situation, even like a Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather with Madonna. He got put into that type of situation, with Madonna won. Where this guy was, for whatever reason, Floyd wasn't as strong that night. He was physically being manhandled. He came in, I think, a little too small. And it was a rough, tough fight. But he's the type of fighter who can make the adjustments and make the changes that are needed in order to come out victorious. Him against Cotto, all of a sudden it was a toe-to-toe type of battle. But even fighting in that way, he was able to still come out victorious and come out on top. Canelo's been blasting people out lately, even if he's, even though the judges obviously usually give him the rounds, even if he's having a tough time, even though he's having issues, he's usually been able to just outlast guys. His stamina has been just absolutely incredible all of a sudden, when he used to have stamina issues all the time. And he's just been, because of that and because of the punching power that he has, he's had really heavy hands. He's been able to break guys down and eventually stop them. So when it comes, that's like how many times have we heard, oh, the guy, he was doing really good against Canelo, until boom, he got broke down and they stopped, or he got hurt, he got knocked out, he blew out his bicep, or whatever it is. There's always something, orbital bone broken, something usually breaks, and that's it. That's the end of the fight. But it wasn't like that this time. In the first couple of rounds, Bivol was just getting hit. I don't care what anybody says. Like, he was just getting hit with shots. He was getting hit with shots to the body. He was getting hit with shots to the face. And to me, it felt to me as if, he was feeling it. So he's getting hit. He's throwing a couple of punches, but for the most part, he has the high guard. He's keeping his hands up. He's throwing punches here and there, but, he's keeping, that's not necessarily solid shots from hitting him, but he's getting hit. Then the shots start to get in. So I'm sitting there like, I don't know. He might, he might be in the process of getting broke down now, because then all of a sudden the shots were getting to his face, they were getting to his body, but he was able to withstand all of it, and my issue with him was that I didn't think that he'd be able to win the fight against Canelo because he's slow. I don't care what anybody said, that dude is slow. He's really slow. He has okay leg movement though. He can move though. He can move, he can keep you at range. He did that a little bit better than I actually thought he was gonna do. Actually a lot better than I thought he was going to be able to do. But he was able to do it. He was able to keep that movement going. And he kept those hands up and he kept his body protected. And Canelo couldn't really hit him with that shot that would break him, or, bring him, get him over the hump. Couldn't do it. And as the fight went on, and Bivol was trying to get his shots off too, getting his shots to the body, getting shots to the face, and he would do it in spots. He wouldn't allow himself to get caught up with the BS. He wouldn't start exchanging. He stayed focused. He had a particular game plan, and he just stuck to it. It didn't matter what Canelo was doing. Doesn't matter what he was saying. Doesn't matter what's going on with the crowd. He stuck to his game plan. Made sure he was defensive-wise. He was, on point with that. He didn't become reckless at all during the entire fight. And as the fight went on, as Canelo's throwing these big shots, nothing was happening. And it got to the point where Bivol wasn't feeling him anymore. Well, I was seeing Canelo still wind up, boom, and hit the shots, and Bivol's not even moving. And as soon as I saw that he's not being fazed by the shots anymore, I was like, oh, you got a problem. Canelo really has a problem. He wasn't being phased anymore, just loading up, not feeling it. But then he's also, now his shots are getting in. They're getting into Canelo's face. They're getting into Canelo's body, but especially to his face. Even though he was missing a couple of shots here and there, he would still connect still too, though. He started throwing combinations at that guy, And as the fight went on, it became very clear, like, all right, Bivol's ahead now. And you saw Canelo in the corner. He's breathing heavy. He's breathing heavy. He's breathing heavy. You could tell that he's tired like he used to be, real tired, And what usually happens to the fighters that he faces, that's been happening for a while now, just it did not happen in this fight, So he needed to come out with something else because the power shots weren't working in this particular fight. He wasn't able to break this man down at all, And this guy was just doing his thing. If you looked at the second half, it was weird. The first half of the fight, I'm like, eeh. The second half of the fight, he looked fresh. Second half of the fight, I'm like, oh, he's good. Is Canelo going to be okay? And I think he hurt Canelo once or twice. There was one time where I thought if he pushed the pressure, he might have been able to actually even stop Canelo, but he stuck to his game plan. He stayed smart, and thank God he wasn't robbed at the judges, because that was my only last thing, was like, yeah, they might rob this kid. They might rob this kid, but they didn't. The scores shouldn't have been as close as they were, 113 to 115. It shouldn't have been that close. It wasn't that close of a fight. But at the end of the day, he still got what he was supposed to get, which is the victory. So he's still undefeated. He's still the champion, and he's the man now. Unfortunately, he fights on DAZN. He's not going to progress or become a star fighting on DAZN, but we'll see now. We'll see what they do next. Canelo has a rematch clause, so Canelo could fight him next. I'm not sure that Canelo necessarily does that, though. I think Canelo might end up fighting Gennady Golovkin. The fight that they wanted to do, they might end up just doing that fight anyway, because now they'll see, like, oh, Canelo lost. Oh, he might be able to lose to Gennady Golovkin, and they still might pay him a substantial amount of money. I don't know if they're going to give him the same guarantee as before now, because technically with him losing this fight, that contract is void. And they had a lot of empty seats in that place. It wasn't no sellout. It wasn't no sellout. They had dropped the pay-per-view price down too. They dropped that down too. So, I don't know how much they actually generated. I don't know how much they actually made off of, as far as, because it's supposed to be a quote, a DAZN pay-per-view. I don't know what they made off that. But maybe they decided, hey, fighting Gennady Golovkin might be a better thing. I don't know if he's going to necessarily fight Bivol again. And then the question also is that, is the prices, monetarily, what they were going to give him before. I don't know if they're going to necessarily do the same thing. So I don't know how that part works, unless he had something already set up as far as a rematch is concerned. If he lost, where they would pay him a certain amount. Could be that too. But I wouldn't be surprised, though, if he said, let me leave this alone and go fight Gennady Golovkin instead. And I heard people saying that, oh, well, he was too small. It had nothing to do with being too small. The guy he was facing a guy who was on point, who was real focused when it came to his defense. He was really focused when it came to the movement that he was utilizing in the fight, and just had a better game plan. Had a nice jab going, kept throwing, even though it was a light jab, he just kept that jab out there, kept throwing that light jab, just kept throwing that light jab out there, scoring. And that's why he won. It wasn't it wasn't a brute type of situation. Canelo was trying to be the brute in the fight, and he was a 175 champion before too, Canelo, and just 2-3 days ago, people were talking about him going all the way up to 201 and facing Usyk. They were talking about him going all the way to cruiserweight and fighting cruiserweights. We heard all that too. So we can't go with he's too small. We saw Floyd Mayweather for almost a decade and a half take on guys 15, 20 pounds bigger than him. Nobody was praising him for that. When he took on Canelo, I think was 16 plus pounds bigger than him on fight night. And he was 36 years old, not 31 like Canelo. So, hey, it is what it is. He met up with the better man, in that particular night. And I don't think he fights him again. I think he ends up, what would be smart would be, I guess, for him to go down and fight Gennady Golovkin. 168 pounds. We see why he turned down the funds that he turned down. We see why he didn't want to do those fights, why he didn't want to do the Charlo, why he didn't want to do the Benavides. There's certain styles. Why he didn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade. There's certain styles that bother him. He tried to stay away from those, but still manufacture fights where people are going to be interested in, or where networks are still going to pay him the kind of money that they're going to, that they can pay him, that he wants, without necessarily doing those other particular fights. And he was able to do that for a while. But like I said, you're still going to eventually meet up with a person where it ain't going to work out. You're running away, but you running away, you can end up running into something. And that's what happened to him, and he couldn't pass that test. But we'll see what the future holds. But shout out to Bivol, because I didn't think he could get it done. Even if he won, I thought he was going to get robbed, but he wasn't. Like, subscribe, share. I'm out.